Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
It is slavery. It's just a different name. A lot of people don't realize what it is. And when we bring these ideas to light and make people realize, that this government force is the problem.
And to me, it's like I say, imagine you're an abolitionist in the 19th century, and these slave masters are giving you the same exact argument. Who's going to pick the cotton?
Hey, Seeds of Liberty. Read the show's description, please. Fervently complete the course, report him to the infantry. Finish him, deconstruct the fallacy. Seasonal production means it seems to spawn a tragedy. Peep the action, please. A fraction of the allegory. Corollary cadences complaining on a sadder story. Menial, recently reading into the thesis here. Mirroring the people who completely fail to see it though. Seeing is believing, yes, the reason is.
This is the Seeds of Liberty podcast, episode 84, I believe. Today we don't have Jeremy, or we don't have Danilo, but we do have a wild anarcho Andrei and our friend Donnie Gebert here today. How are you fellas doing, Andrei?
I'm doing great, man. It's great to be on the show again. How are you doing, man?
I'm great, man. I'm glad you could hop on so short notice. Donnie, how's it going, brother?
Greetings, oh bearded one.
Oh bearded one. I like the beard. I'm still growing it. It's 2 years old now. I've named it Zeus, and we're still going for we're destined for in 3 more years. I'm going to the world beard competition. I'm going to try to win that bad boy.
At 5 years
I hope
of growth?
You need to.
Yeah, at 5
years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really? I figured they would take a little more. I've seen the mustache competitions, and there's no way those things are only 5 years old.
Some people get radical with like the certain proteins and stuff you can put in your body to like make hair grow. So Donnie comes on FeenPhone here and tells me that Jesse Jackson is telling Obama that he needs to pardon Hillary Clinton, but apparently Hillary Clinton and they've been saying she hasn't done anything. So why would Jesse Jackson already be saying that Obama should pardon her if nothing's up?
That is a swampy motherfucker. That's what Jesse Jackson is, a swampy motherfucker.
Is he involved in the child stuff?
What these people have been up to.
Allegedly?
I got a strange feeling. Oh, you know what? I didn't even think about that, but it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me at all.
Not even a little bit. He is a giant sack of human garbage.
I think history is going to remember the federal government, especially at this time, as the biggest criminal racket that has ever been launched.
Yeah,
I certainly hope so.
It has been a mind-blowing adventure. When you say the federal government, do you mean like this iteration of it, like the 1913 like Federal Reserve federal government?
Or
do you mean
I
like
don't think the historians,
the post-Lincoln federal government, or what's going on?
I don't know how that's going to get chopped up. I really don't know. There's so many different ways you could do it. You could do it by president. You could do it by war. You could do it by when the Federal Reserve started. You could do it by, how many different ways the federal government was stealing, everybody's money, like in every way that you could possibly imagine, to include using a military. This can be dissected 184 ways.
Yeah, I don't know how hard it is to understand that, like, okay, we've got this monopoly money that we want to force everyone to use. So let's give soldiers and generals and stuff a boatload of it with huge incentives to keep making more of it. And then we'll just, use them to unilaterally enforce everyone else to use this and pay for taxes and to be stuck in this, debt slavery, essentially. that's what we're dealing with here, and most people don't understand it. I know we talk about the Federal Reserve, but that is essentially what we're dealing with. Like, you know, the sheep herd or the sheepdog or whatever. That's that meme that the military guys like to call themselves. Like, that's legitimately what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
sheepdogs.
yeah, they're literally, that's what they are. They're unilaterally enforcing that system of slavery on everyone else. You know, even their parents and their grandparents and their brothers and their cousins and everybody.
And their children. Most importantly, their children and their friends' children and the children of people they know. I think if we do get to the point, which I'm sure we will, because the American system of government, the federal government, does not have much longer to live. The petrodollar exists purely through the force of arms that the United States wields, and as soon as enough countries just stop giving a shit, it's going to collapse. And you know, I've talked to this with other people before. It can be bad or it can be really bad. I don't know, but moving forward in the future, I think a lot of it's going to roll back to people agreeing generally by consensus that from 1913 onward was a mistake. And was a horrendous mistake.
Essentially the United States government has acted illegally or unconstitutionally since then, and it really has been acting unconstitutionally since the end of the Civil War, when Lincoln never turned off the War Powers Act that's still on the books.
Exactly.
So,
but here's the thing, Dave. Here's the humps that you're never ever getting over. You want to say that's unconstitutional, and I'm going to tell you it absolutely is.
I'm not making that posit. I'm just saying.
And here's why. Here's why. Because if the Constitution allows for the turning on of the War Powers Act, then it has to turn it back off. So, exactly. So, a lot of people like to get caught up in this I don't like to believe the Constitution part of this constitutional act. And it's really, it doesn't help their understanding. I mean, I understand the point, but they don't articulate it.
That's a very hard pill for most people that would like to identify themselves as conservative, or these, like, you know, these colors don't run kind of, patriotic people.
You know what though?
Here's the thing. Everything the government does is technically constitutional.
Well, and that's what I was going to get at, because once we start peeling that back, once it becomes accepted that that was the case and that was in fact what was going on, and we understand that this is the case, the more you peel back, the farther you have to go, and then you start to realize that this pretty much goes back to the beginning, and there was no point in time where the Republic was ever anything other than imposition of the will of a small group of people on everybody else. So, yeah. I mean, I think it'll start from 1913 onward, and that's where everybody's going to join the consensus, but it's only going to build impetus as people realize, well, what was done was not unconstitutional. As much as we like to say it was unconstitutional, it was ratified and accepted by every branch of government. So, there wasn't anything wrong. It was passed into law and accepted.
Has allowed the government to become a bigger tick than most people will allow. We're just
they allowed.
What do you mean?
Allow? They promoted. They promoted. They caused. This is essentially a cause-effect thing. It's all moral hazard. All you got to do is start kicking that can around and grease the right wheels. The whole point is to get that ball rolling so that there's lots of interest being generated. When you're controlling the dollar, the more dollars in the world, the more power you have.
Exactly.
So
correct.
They're doing this on purpose. It's honestly, I was reading something today that the market is already priced in the December rate hike. Oh, really? They like to make that sound like, oh, it's okay. Now, I'll tell you, the Fed's probably going to raise rates in December, and if they don't, it's going to be a real problem, because the market has just started to lead it again. It's to the point where the market has to price things in because the Federal Reserve won't. But then they'll just kind of go along and see what happens. But as soon as the market figures out that they just took back control this month, they took it back. They took the power back right now. Now, it doesn't mean there won't be a little struggling over it. But up until now, the market has been laying there taking it because everybody
All
knows
those
that the smart
bailouts.
money is but the smart money for the people, all the people in the know, the smart money is let the Fed do what they're doing, and we know how the system works. Better the devil you know. They make as much money off of it all as they can until it all explodes. So they really want the Fed to be in control at this point because they're scared shitless without it. As soon as they figured out that the Fed is a paper tiger and that they're not nearly as influential to prevent these several, well, you can't prevent all the catastrophes.
I see your point. I see your point. You know, like that. You know, the curtain could come back and Oz could be there standing. You know, for everyone here if these rates get hiked in December. But what's to say they don't just do some currency forgiveness and resets and all this other stuff to save their face and, you know,
you can't
promise new regulations under Trump and all this other bull mess. And
you can't throw stuff like that into the market. The market is listen, there are literally, without question, there are millions of people across this planet who sit around every day making sure that their I's are dotted and that their T's are crossed, because when Janet Yellen prints up $1 billion, it's not a big deal. But when a hedge fund manager loses $500 million, that's it. It's over. It's over for him. He may never work again. They jump out of windows for a reason.
Oh yeah.
So all I'm saying is, for the market has already priced in a December rate hike, even though there's been nothing but hot air since last December. Hot air. And now all of a sudden the market prices it in, and Janet Yellen kind of nods her head like, good, the markets are prepared. Oh, really? Don't kid yourself for 1 minute. The markets just decided that there needed to be a rate hike, and now Janet Yellen's going to follow through on it. Now, who knows if it's really going to sting or not, because you don't really find out how the sting is going to hit until after it changes.
Yeah.
How is that rate hike going to, who's the rate hike going to kill? Because it's going to kill somebody.
Supposedly,
that's what I was going to say.
Supposedly, it's going to collapse the whole dollar. The whole petrodollar is going to go down if those rates go up, even up 1.25%.
Yeah, but that's a long way from the 0.25 they're talking about. So don't. If you put 1.5 in there right now, sure, you'd kill the patient. But if you give the patient just a little bit, the patient's going to live longer, and then maybe a little bit more. I'm telling you, this is going to take a while.
I keep looking at every, and I want to get Andrei's opinion on this. I keep looking at every scenario, since Trump has won the election. I had a lot more theories before the election, but some of them have been wiped out. I think Trump's going to get elected, inaugurated, all that. I still do not see how civil war isn't brewed up by these bankers to protect their racket in some way. There's already been signaling from Trump. There's already been signaling from the bankers. You know, they've been already molding him, started to frame him as anti-Semitic already. And he is already, starting to throw slight, shade a little bit here and there. Hey, the Federal Reserve's a big problem. Could you see him nationalizing it? And if he does, Andrei, could you see civil war cracking off? Because every time in America that the banks have been essentially taken back by the government, it has caused or almost caused civil war.
Oh yeah, it's caused a whole lot of social and civil strife. That's 100% certain. But I really don't know. I want to say that yeah, he will follow through on it. I don't know. And based on his list of cabinet picks, I don't really hold a whole lot of hope for what an actual Trump presidency is going to look like. And I mean, of course, the cabinet picks list, whatever, he's just picking guys because he's picking guys. But I think his particular choice of establishment people does not bode well for what his policies will look like. Now, I don't know. He might just decide to be, well, I'm the boss and you can give me advice, but you can't tell me what to do. And he may just end up turning it back. And if he does, and he does decide to nationalize the Federal Reserve, yeah, I think we're going to see a ton of pushback.
If you look at the executive orders, that have been placed, and I know this all just, they're bull crap, words on paper, but hear me out here. you look at all the executive orders that Bush and Obama and Clinton have passed. Oh, Trump is stepping into essentially a de facto dictatorship.
Yeah, basically, that's 100% true.
If he can't
almost complete authority over the federal government.
Exactly. If he can't kick out or at least nationalize the Fed, and like I said, if he doesn't, the Fed gets ignored and they try to keep zombieing this along, eventually the people are going to get restless because they can't get jobs and they're tired of getting robbed. They're going to incite a civil war. If he kicks them out, I see the people that control the Federal Reserve trying to protect their racket and scare everybody and, say this is why we have to have a central bank. And, that's what they've done every time.
Listen,
well, I mean, hell, that's what George Soros is doing right now. All of these anti-Trump, rallies and protests and whatever, all of these all these riots and property destruction that's happening. It's the WikiLeaks has come out. George Soros is funding this. Like, he's got his hand in the pie.
Donnie,
it's too far gone, man. You're talking about trying to call in a doctor here to save a patient. He's already been briefed on the State of the Union. Okay, the State of the Union is on fucking life support. This is not going to be a huge change for anything, because any huge change will kill the patient. And right now, there's a lot of people, and their goal is to get the fuck out of Dodge. They are trying. Why do you think all of these lefties are saying, "Oh, well, if Trump is president, we're leaving"? That's because the hammer is going to drop on all of them eventually. Okay, this is a huge racket. This is a huge racket, and when
you think the economy is going to swing
crash,
is going to go through the country.
Listen, but the economy cannot be saved at this point. It's already beyond any.
Well, we've been saying that since
change.
day one on this podcast, I believe.
Right, but here's the thing: there's a big difference between this patient is going to get better and this patient has not yet been pronounced dead. Okay, you could do a whole lot of things to make this another day, another week, another month, and it's going to be dragged out every step of the way, because at the end of the day, every step that's taken actually lessens the blow at the end. And I don't mean that it's not going to be horrible at the end. I mean, if we did it now, the system might actually be able to save itself, but it would be a huge, huge shit show. And nobody wants the shit show, right? So at the end of the day, it's not going to be, we're going to go through the shit show and then find a way to reform this system. This system is going to die.
Well, so the petrodollar is going to die. The petrodollar is going to die. It's being attacked at too many angles at this point. We all agree on that consensus, right?
Right.
Yeah, but that's not the normal state. That's not the normal state. For the last 30 years, it's been attacked on all sides too. However, America had the resources and the influence and the military to fend it off on all sides. Honestly, we've all really benefited from this. I'm not saying that we were happy about it or even knew about it, but we have benefited from the dollar, the whole dollar paradigm, for most of its life. I mean, I'm 39. I was born in 77. Yeah. So everything said in 71 has kind of benefited me. I just have to recognize that. But beyond that, there's nothing I could do about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're just a victim of circumstance and the whole thing anyways, Donnie.
Well, less than others, but I digress.
So I just, personally, I've played, I've game theoried out every scenario going forth since Trump has been elected. And the gorilla, the 10,000 billion pound gorilla in the room is definitely the bubble, the dollar bubble in the Federal Reserve. And how he's going to handle that, I have no clue whatsoever.
Listen, whenever there's a trauma, whenever something goes down, there's always a narrative, because let's face it, if these people have this $1 trillion intelligence apparatus and they can't know something 48 hours in advance, they need to hang it up. So they really have this, they will craft a narrative that will make every piece of this hard landing. You ever seen a bunch of
cockroaches scatter when the door gets open and the light hits them?
And that's the point. They're not going to let the doors open. They're going to fly the goddamn thing right into the mountainside, and if you survive the wreckage, then maybe you get to be pissed off. But that's going to be it. It's not going to be, they're not going to have riots in the streets, dude. By the time they figure out the riots are starting, they're gone. They're gone. Yeah. They're going to be out of fucking Dodge. They already have the. Obama has a house in Dubai already. Now, I'm not. I mean, I think that should be a sign to
you
people
protected his
that
freedom,
if a sitting president plans on moving out of the country after his office, you can bet your sweet ass that some shady shit has gone down.
That's probably his 5th or 6th house, Donnie, to be real honest.
Maybe, but still, out of the country is it's a strange thing. It's a strange thing for a leader, a president, something like that. It's odd.
That is very odd.
Well, I thought it was because he was, a Muslim and he was born in Kenya. I thought.
I've seen the documents.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I had to. I really did. But I'm with you. And going back to what you were saying, Donnie, you're 100% right. They are going to ride this out for as long as they possibly can and delay the inevitable, and let it creep in as slowly as possible until they finally have no more tricks up their sleeves, and it all comes crashing down on. But at that point, you're right. They'll already be well on their way out the door. So
they have their own trading floor. The Federal Reserve has their own personal trading floor for the New York Stock Exchange.
Once you understand that.
Right. You have to understand, they could just make stuff up and throw it. Like, they could be doing stuff all day long, and none of us has a clue. And there is no oversight to that. So, honestly, I think this is going to be reactionary. Unless there is some event that spirals out of control faster than the plunge protection team can get underneath it, this is going to last a long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
I think as long as there's soldiers willing to fight for it, it's going to last a long time for sure.
No, I don't. Honestly, that goose is cooked. Even if you send everybody to Iraq again, they're running out of money hand over fist now. Like, that'll be one of those events that'll start to hyperinflate because there's really no way to pay for the money.
Countries
the bond market's
green.
drying up.
You're already seeing countries become green, killing the petrodollar. It's
not just that. It's not just the killing of it. They're not buying bonds anymore. They're not buying treasuries, so the Fed can't print. The U.S. Treasury can't just print up a bunch of money and then find a way to get it over on the Fed's balance sheet.
Because nobody's buying them anymore.
Say what?
The Fed has nowhere to offload them to once they buy them, and they can't just hold them because they're not worth anything.
Right, and everybody's starting to figure it out. And the thing is, it's really killing all of the retirees, and it's killing the insurance companies because all of that stuff is on a 20 and 30 year rollover, and it's not too big of a deal when your interest rates are low and you're not getting paid for the treasuries that, for 1 year it's no big deal. But year after year after year with less than 1%, if you haven't noticed, your insurance is probably going up a little bit. And the people who are living off of, like retirement savings and stuff like that, they're all taking a killing because they should be compounding interest, and they're not. Like, if you're in your 40s, you're okay. If you're in your 60s, you're going to be shit out of luck.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody who's
all of your earnings are tied to the dollar.
It's not just tied to the dollar, but yeah, like, I mean, it's an extremely complex system. Like, it's really hard, but it's not quite that simple. But yeah, it's really tied to the treasuries, and the treasuries are basically the full faith and credit. Well, that's all that really the dollar is. So if people aren't going to buy enough treasuries to let the federal government do everything that it wants to do, it's probably just going to print into existence what it needs, and that's just going to start.
That's what it's been doing.
It's going to keep going. Since
1913.
Honestly, I expect to see maybe another attempted gold confiscation. They'll probably seize the 401ks first and do a bail-in before anything else.
Oh, that's definitely the thing. They'll try to go to negative rates.
No, there's so many things. They could grab the 401ks. They can go to negative rates. They could do quantitative easing. They could do measured or full-blown all three. They could just go start a war and try to steal. Like, they could try to, hey, we got enough money for enough gas to get most of the way to Moscow. If we get there, they got a bunch of gold. Like literally, you could start just dreaming up wild scenarios of how many different ways can this die? Nobody knows. Nobody knows where it's going to start. It probably already started, but nobody knows what that final kick in the ribs is going to be.
No one's going to even know. Like, the people on the surface level, like the average citizen, is going to probably never know all this stuff is going on in the background and in back rooms and stuff like that.
They're going to find out when a gallon of milk is $8 a gallon, but the value of their home is cut in half. That's when they're going to find out.
Yeah.
They're going to see stagflation all at once.
Oh yeah, it's funny you mentioned going to. We have enough gas to get almost all the way to Moscow and steal their gold, and that really ties in because the antagonism toward Russia has been going on for, God, it's been almost a decade now.
But that's
and
all
immediately
was Hillary
after
and the Democrats, though, theoretically.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes. George Bush wasn't like buddy with Putin, but he was certainly on much better terms than the last 8 years have been. I like that Putin guy. He's on the right track.
Every time I say his name, it makes me laugh. Putin.
I mean, I'm no fan of Putin. He's basically a de facto dictator. But I mean, it's not much different than what we have here, if we're being honest with ourselves. The only difference is he's like George H.W. Bush on steroids, because he was KGB, so he knows how to play the game.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. We all understand his background, but look at what's actually gone on. I mean, honestly,
that's what I'm getting
it was
at.
the most bloodless civil war that ever happened. Like, they voted to go back to Russia, and that was it. Like, 95% of the population wanted to go back, and they went back. And yeah, there's some shit going down in the Ukraine, but honestly, that's not on the Russian side. That's on our side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
George Soros.
All of this antagonism.
Anybody who's ever played Risk. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Donnie.
Okay, anybody who's ever played Risk knows that if you have Ukraine and Middle East, you control the East and West. You control the East-West movement of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So Ukraine is pretty much keeping Russian gas out of Europe, and ISIS is essentially keeping Iranian gas from getting to the European market. That's another one of those triggers where all of that Eastern money starts going, all the Western money starts going east, paying for natural resources that we're getting from other places now. That's another one of those events that starts kicking things off. So when you start seeing aggressive interventions
and all those
by the
BRICS
State
nations
Department,
introducing new currency. Yep, I can see.
But when you see the State Department doing what they're doing, you'll start seeing exactly how the pieces on the board are moving, and the whole goal. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right at all. But you have to understand that the whole of the federal government is trying to protect the dollar right now. I don't think they've ever stopped to ask. I don't think they've stopped to ask themselves if they're right or if their methods are sound. But let's just a simple perspective on all the people doing it, that they really don't understand. Some of them think they're fighting for their lives, because they kind of are. And it's kind of a sad rat place to be if you're just you're looking at your life like you're just a big primate. You probably feel pretty helpless being on the southbound end of that northbound train.
Yeah, on a northbound train to fucking Stadyville. So, yeah, Jesse Jackson's a fraud. This whole thing's a joke. Trump can't save this crashing blimp. It's going to be quite the sight to see.
The only thing I'm hoping that he does is he accelerates the pace of it, which it's funny because we were during the run-up to the elections when we were having the primaries. I mean, I can't tell you how many posts I saw about, like, well, we should vote for Hillary Clinton so we can speed up the collapse, yada, yada, whatever. I mean, at this point, there's really nothing anybody can do to really slow it down.
Donald Trump might be the ultimate ANCAP. Think about this. If he goes... because all of his money...
The accidental ANCAP.
Most of all of his money is in property, right? So if the dollar collapses, that doesn't bother him whatsoever.
That doesn't even...
No.
Really.
Remember, he's the king of debt. He is the king of debt. He is not going to let interest rates shoot up through the roof, at least not before he's done refinancing. You could bet your sweet ass on that.
Well, his
company... you're 100% true. Yeah, 100% true.
Oh, yeah. So don't expect the financial stuff to change very much at all up front. At least until the Donald's got his shit.
No. He could be doing this to get a gold-backed currency, That'd be hilarious, just so he...
Honestly, he doesn't... I don't think he's got that much... I don't think he's going to have that much sway in the whole thing.
Okay.
Here's the good thing, though. Hillary, if you voted for Hillary under the guise that, Hillary will make it collapse faster, absolutely not. Absolutely not. She is on team ride this all the way in.
Yeah.
Trump might actually not play every single portion of the game and might speed it up a little bit.
That's what I was getting at. He might incidentally by wanting to do his own thing and not play by the same rule book that everybody else is playing by, just accidentally managed to also speed it up.
So,
which you're absolutely right. Hillary Clinton would have done exactly the same thing. She would have wrote it out the same as everybody else is trying to do.
And honestly, there's a bunch of people, there's a bunch of events that aren't here that could tip this thing off too. Mm-hmm. Like, it's such a complex thing. They were confiscating money in India and Australia now. They're doing away with their $50 and their $100 bills, and in India they did away with like the 1,000 rupee and the 500 rupee. Like, it's causing all kinds of shit problems because India's now, I'm telling you right now, India is already starting to just buy gold. Like, the people are revolting over the money issue, and they're just trying to buy gold now. So, like, 1 billion people are already aware of what these people are up to.
Yeah.
Just because it's not on Fox or CNN doesn't mean that the rest of the planet is not catching on to their shit either.
Oh, no.
They are.
I think people are quickly becoming wide awake to the central banking fiat money scheme worldwide, for sure. And it's at a point now where feels and all this other stuff that can't be used to deny it. Like the facts are in your face. Economic reality cannot be ignored. You're going to starve if you do. So,
and that's what we were talking about before, man. I'm telling you, you can say that the logic is so clear that your feels can't ignore it, and I'm telling you, the very nature of feels allows the ignorance of logic. That's what it does. That is how a feeler works. So if you don't learn how to translate to those people, you might as well just give up on them. Like, you have to translate that logic into sense data. Think about the logic being like a pine tree with no needles, and think about your sense data being like the needles. Now, it seems weird for us to think that there's a whole section of a tree that's nothing but needles with no branches, but that's how sense data kind of works. If you can bring the logic out to those points for those people, it will help connect their sense data to, oh, this is what the logic people are talking about. Otherwise, they're just kind of scared rabbits running about, tipping over buses.
I agree with your synopsis to some extent. Go ahead, Andrei.
I just wanted to capitalize on what Donnie was saying, and I've had to try that approach because most of the pushback that I get is from people using irrational emotional. Well, I don't want to say irrational, but yeah, irrational emotional responses. Based on what they think they know, absent logic, because they have these very deep-seated feelings that drive their narrative and drive their views of the world and how things work. And it's hard. Like, I'm sure all of us have spent time trying to rationally discuss things with people to convince them, okay, well, logically, your entire set of beliefs is inconsistent, and here's why, and let me show you how. And sometimes it works. And that approach, like, all of that effort you spend is like, you have to do that over in a completely different way with these people. So it is such a monumental effort.
I did this weird thing throughout my whole life. I didn't even know I was doing it literally until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And
is it this one weird trick to get rid of belly fat?
There's a thing called bihemisphericity, and it's basically the understanding of what each half of your brain does. Well, I was not really using half. I was not using my sense data half. I was really... Dave will tell you how I used to talk months and months ago, and it was supremely logical, somewhat quick, almost rushed, kind of impatient, because that's the nature of a logical brain. You see things very cleanly, very open, like the pine tree with no needles. There's nothing blocking your view. You get a very clear picture of things. But if you cannot relate that logical point to where the sense data is, these people will not understand.
You're talking Chinese to an Englishman. You really are.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a completely different path.
It doesn't make logic. It makes sense.
Yeah,
you have to think of it in that way.
Multiple, and I love it because it's the best analogy. Multiple times on this podcast, I've compared this exactly what you're talking about, Donnie. Empaths, people that tend to be more emotional, people that tend to not think as more logically as some others or make logical decisions, they usually make emotion-based decisions. And you have to think about humans all really operate as emotion-based, people. To some extent, even the most logical, rigid philosopher still has emotions about something. So to change someone's mind that they are emotional about, because no one gets emotional about 2 + 2 = 4. Like, no one wants to walk up and fight you because you just said 2 + 2 = 4. They will, though, if you say God doesn't exist, or hey, that flag is just a piece of cloth. They will get upset.
But great, let me translate that for you, because you actually made a really good analogy. We learn math visually and audibly. If I told you that you could smell the number 2, you would probably think I was dropping acid. But here's the thing. We learn 2. It's an abstract. It doesn't actually exist. So here we have a visual representation of the number 2, and every time I say that, and you use the clues to put it in the context of a number, and you know that I'm referring to the abstract of 2.
Yes.
Well, those are 2 of your senses. Imagine you learned the number 2 by the smell of cinnamon instead of by a visual or something like that. Then you would understand the number 2 to be the smell of cinnamon. If you can imagine the perfume rack, if you can imagine a perfume rack at Macy's, that would be a library. It wouldn't be a perfume rack. So if you can start thinking in that way, you're saying that they don't make logic. You're right. They don't make logic.
No.
They make sense. They take sensory data and they use their own logic to interpret, what does this make me feel? And they're absorbing information not through a Cat 5 cable, but like sunshine. Yeah. And when they look at something and it makes them viscerally sick, they don't know how to make logic of that. They just know that it makes them sick.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't really functionally understand that. So you really have to get into your empathy, even if you're logic. And here's the logic behind it. Ready? You'll talk to them all you want, but they won't hear you. So you might as well learn to do this, because if you don't, you might as well just shut up.
You're absolutely right. You imagine the person sitting on top of an elephant on this a specific subject you want them to either agree with you on, or that they're being illogical about. Imagine them sitting on an elephant, and this elephant is called emotions, and they are sitting on top of it, and they're called intellect. Well, it doesn't matter where the intellect is looking if they're not going to start walking that way unless the elephant starts walking that way. So you have to go after the emotions first. When you're talking, with your parents, and you're like, hey, I might be an anarchist, and they flip off the handles, just tell them why in an emotional manner, because obviously they're acting emotional. Don't say, look, you're the stupid ones here because you don't see the rigid logic behind it. Get them emotional. Get them emotional about it. Make them feel like they're the piece of shit for supporting this system of slavery,
I look at it a little bit simpler, but a little bit, it's just a different perspective. Imagine that evolution and creation went at the same time. First, there were the monkeys, the humans, they evolved, but then the beings came later, right? You're some weird, whatever the hell you want to call it. You're a very logical thing, but you're driving around in a monkey. Okay, if you don't know how to control your monkey, don't know how to control your monkey, you're in for some shit.
Correct.
Your monkey has its own wants. Your monkey has its own needs. If you don't understand, the monkey isn't going to react very well. And at the same time, you have to take care of yourself. You have to get a good sense of who you are and why are you here? What makes you get out of bed? Why are you walking around today? But you have to understand that these other people, they can't control their monkey. They absolutely cannot control their monkey. So think about the way a child behaves. It's like it's like this very intelligent being trapped in a child with no ability to communicate, and it just starts freaking out and acting like a goddamn chimp.
Yeah,
that's what my 2-year-old does.
Yeah, my 3-year-old daughter does exactly the same thing, and you have to reach them at their level. Like, you have to. There's no other way for you to communicate effectively. If you don't, all you're going to get is pushback. All you're going to get is irrational, emotional outburst and reaction. You're not going to get any traction. That's 100%.
The thing that really helped me with my empathy was understanding that person is trapped in a monkey. They cannot help certain things. If you speak to them as if you're trying to teach them to train their monkey. Okay, listen, I understand you don't get this because you're feeling something, but here's what the thought looks like. And honestly, I think, a lot of these phrases, they fly around in our language, like you've never had an original thought in your life. You know what? Maybe your monkey's been driving the whole time. Maybe you've just been sitting in the back seat, feet up. Yep. So if
I know that was me for a long time.
They don't get a hold of themselves. What are they going to be doing? They'll be out flipping over buses.
Well, you got to look at it this way as well. You know, I've noticed, especially in our little groups and echo chambers or whatnot that pop up on the internet, that everyone is very, very, very rigid, semantical, and all around just iron sharpens irony. You know, like everyone wants to argue and really be rigid about how they present what they're saying. And I think that's good because that weeds out people and their emotions when it comes to being able to rhetoricize and really understand liberty. Because once the feelings are gone out of it and you're like, okay, these are the reasons why this makes logical sense. After your feelings are gone behind it, you can really start seeing what people, when they're being emotional about it, why specifically they're being emotional about it. So you can find that reason, because normally most people have one or two reasons why they're really, really passionate about state power and enforcing this thing that they think would be good for humanity onto everyone else. So you have to start pulling them emotionally away from that by using your emotions to why you're against it, because you, regardless of the logic behind it, you're also emotionally against it at some state, right? Right, Andrei?
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And I actually wanted to echo what you were saying. You know, echo. The whole benefit that I always got from these groups that we have where we discuss things in this manner, where we focus on, you know, clearly defining our terms and argumentation and articulating the thought processes, it doesn't help me necessarily to take that and push it on other people for the same reasons we've been talking about, because they're not there where I can use, they're not logical beings, they're emotional beings. Right? They're letting the monkey do the driving. They're just kicking back and relaxing. They're not thinking about it. But it allows me to understand what the message is and what the point I'm trying to make is, so that way I don't have to wonder about it while I'm trying to communicate the message in a way that will reach these emotional people, these empaths. So I think it's been an enormous benefit. Everybody likes to complain about echo chambers, like, oh, she doesn't need to turn in an echo chamber, yada yada, whatever. And there's some point to that. Of course, you don't want to just relate only to people who agree with you, but at the same time, it's also allowed me to sharpen my understanding, so that way I don't have to try and fill in the blanks while I'm also trying to communicate the message in a way that's not native to me to somebody else.
Correct, right. So like if you're working in a factory, right, and you're putting the tires on the car, right, after, you know, a month or so into the job, it becomes mindless. You can almost turn your brain off, and you don't have to struggle or have any kind of frontal lobe shut down, confusion or anything when someone goes, well, you know, what's your ideas behind this? You know, once you're like, oh yeah, I've articulated that to people and they've shit on my articulation, so I've got all my contradictions out. So then I completely understand that. I have the trivium of knowledge on liberty. And once you get into a little group or around friends or stuff that will sit there and say, you're wrong on this, here's the logic of why I'm saying you're wrong on this. And you can sit there and go, my emotions don't really matter in this situation because I want to be right. You start seeing the world a little differently.
Here's the thing. When you only know how to filter things with emotions, that message doesn't get across. You have to translate. And to give you an example, I think we were talking before, greed doesn't exist on the logic chart. When you try to break down, when you reductionally break down what greed is, you find fraud, you find cruelty, you find other real life words that apply to it, because greed is an emotional thing. It's this monkey keeps too much for himself while the other monkey starves.
It's subjective
That's
to the
a
individual.
Feeling. Yeah. Yes, it is. It's a feeling. It makes no logic, but it definitely makes sense. It's what these people are so hysterical about. I mean, if I'm wrong, then literally that these other people, they're possessed by fucking demons. Like, that's the level of, if this isn't the case, if they just aren't making, if they're making sensory data of this and they're not making logic, maybe they're just completely batshit and they should be on a Thorazine drip for the rest of their life.
I don't think you're talking about those people. I don't think you're talking about those people that are being, like, when someone says greed, they may be saying the incorrect word to mean, I think that person has ill-gotten gains.
Exactly.
That's my point.
That's my point.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrei.
Okay, go on, Donnie.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. They are saying those are ill-gotten gains. But honestly, if you let's boil down some things. If they don't understand property rights, then you're going to hear the word greed a lot. If they don't understand logic, you're probably going to hear the word greed a lot. If they're referring to Wall Street, which is nothing more than fraud and or legalized fraud, then you're going to hear the word greed. If you're going to see somebody taunting somebody with shit that they own that nobody else owns, they're going to call that greed. But that's really more like cruelty. Okay? All of these things end up being greed. So in the logical mind, it's just like, okay, well, let's break this down. And anybody who takes the time to logically break down what greed is, it's always something else. When you take the time to find out what these people are complaining so vigorously about, it boils down to this monkey keeps too much for himself.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense. It doesn't make logic. If you think about it like that.
Donnie, I completely agree with that.
This is a thing to these people. They have to understand that. And when you walk that out and explain to them, this is why I don't think greed is a worthy argumentation point. But fraud is. Let's talk about fraud, and then let's discuss that. They seem to transition really, really well. And it's kind of okay because you're bringing them in on that level.
Yeah.
But you have to go to them, especially, and here's the thing. The logical people are the ones who will turn this all cold and ugly. If we don't turn it back around to not be cold and ugly anymore, the empaths will never get it, and they're the ones who want to fix the problem the most.
Yeah, you get
that
a
is
loud
100% true.
You get a loud empath on your team, you're winning, and if they at their core understand why they're being a loud empath, then yeah, it can be really. I wouldn't
go say you're winning. There was a lot of loud people telling me Hillary was going to win. So I wouldn't say you're winning, but you definitely have some more, some good voices in the chorus.
For Hillary, but
the
they don't
motivated ones
understand
that
why
will go
they're
out
for
and
Hillary.
flip over buses.
They're for Hillary, but they don't understand why. You know,
It's very difficult to make logic out of sense.
Yeah,
maybe not winning, but you're definitely in a much better position to drive the conversation.
Correct.
Listen,
I guess
there
would
are
be a
people.
better way to put it.
Everybody seems to think that if your keyhole is 50 inches in 1080p, that it's not a keyhole anymore. There are people who genuinely think that there is going to be serious FEMA camp lynching kind of shit because Donald Trump is president. They have no perspective.
I mean, I thought that was going to happen if Hillary got elected, but, you know, that was just me.
No, I mean, honestly, the whole system is it's literally coming apart, man.
Yeah.
The only reason
I've been calling it since I feel
is
like day one on this podcast that I've been calling it when the dollar pops, there's going to be about 7 states that pop up from that USSR breakup, essentially. That it's going to happen. Texas will be its own state. A few others will be their own states. And then the rest will try to rebuild a new America or whatever. I promise you this is going to happen.
I have no evidence to corroborate this. This is my pure conjectures. Don't nobody fucking go scouring the internet for it. I think it was a landslide. Okay, I think Hillary tried to cheat. I think all the machines were programmed. I think they were supposed to give her a margin of error up to a certain percent because anything more than that would really be looked upon as bad. And I think it went wrong for her anyway. And that was the clue to the oligarchs that said, "Sorry, bitch. You don't understand. If he doesn't win, we are in a deep state of fucked." They're all going to figure out this because you have to cheat in the big cities, man. You can't cheat in Podunk, Iowa. There's 300 people in town. 298 of them are voting for fucking
Trump.
Hillary.
Not Hillary.
Not Hillary. Not Hillary. They might write. They might write in
you
a
look
straw
at
man. I mean,
the craziest thing I've seen so far is the election map of just Democrat hotspots, and then you overlay that with the sanctuary cities is absolutely nuts. That's the only ones they won.
Here's the thing.
I agree with your landslide.
There's 298 people in that town voting, and 85 votes show up for Hillary. They all know something's up. So you can't cheat in these little places. You have to get the big ones to work. And I don't think they worked for her this time. So that's pretty much the sign that, look, the support is overwhelming. We're looking at big, nasty shit if we even try to transition her over. So all the bullshit that's playing out in the media now, that's just to send to hyperbolic children, send them to the corner, let them huff into a paper bag for a few minutes, and then welcome to reality. Donald Trump is going to be the next president. And I'm telling you, I'm sure that there's already been a conversation. They sat down like, okay, what do you want to accomplish in your
I don't
first
know
4
why
years?
the globalists are. I don't know why the globalists have backed the anti-gun movements. You get nothing done without guns, essentially.
Well,
I'm
because anti-gun doesn't mean. I mean,
Yeah.
anti-gun doesn't mean not.
Just for
the
them, they're
government have guns.
they're propagandizing entire generations in Europe right now to be so scared at guns, or guns not being in authorities' hands, that like they're banning movies over there or blurring out the guns in movies and stuff. Like, it is getting nuts. So
Holy shit.
that's happening in the United States as well in some areas. So once you get people propagandized to that level, to where their emotions are so, will not let them see it for what it is.
Listen, here we sit, 3 white males, not a racist amongst us, okay? If you have to understand that the mind control it's really there, man. Look at how many people freaked out about this. These people are in genuine panic. Now, granted, you could say some of them are throwing a tantrum. I agree with you. But seriously, do you think that many people are throwing a tantrum? There's got to be a little more substance.
Well, they're
there
all paid,
than
and I
just
think a lot of
social
people know
justice
that.
warriors.
They're all paid.
And
I don't think they're all paid. I think
I don't
there's
think
a
they're all
portion
paid
of them
anymore.
that are directing it.
I think there's a bunch of brainwashed people in campuses that are, kind of drink the Kool-Aid a little too hard. But most of these people doing the violence and stuff, it is leaking out that they are paid. And, I can get you the documents if you need them.
Okay, but here's my question. Is it most of the people that are actually committing the violence, or is it the people that are inciting others to commit violence because they understand, like we were just talking about, how to approach these people at an emotional level?
Oh, of course.
Such that they override any other thought that they have. Because
you ask them, hey, why do you hate Trump? You've seen these InfoWars videos. And so why do you hate Trump? He's a racist. Well, what racist thing did he say? I don't know, man. Fuck you. He's a racist. Get out of my face. If you support, it's like they don't even. It's like, what is going on in your head here? Like, what is going on in your head? Like,
they believe the keyhole. If you watch nothing but MSNBC or nothing but CNN,
well, see,
honestly,
me and you, we have the same metaphors. Your keyhole metaphor is they're stuck on a lens. They're looking through the same. They're refusing to pull their lens off and say for a minute and go, maybe my lens is wrong here. They like I said, they drank the Kool-Aid a little too hard on these things.
Right, but you have to relate that to them. That's there's no way around it. But seriously, if you watch those networks for 2 hours, and just think, if that's the only news you got for months on end, you might have a real bad reaction to all of this. So,
yeah,
I mean, I kind of understand what's going on. Like, a lot of people are just pissed. A lot of people are pissed off at the economy. A lot of people are pissed off because for the sake of being pissed off. And I got called a statist today by supposedly another anarchist. And my tracks are pretty clean, so I'm pretty specific and I'm pretty laid back these days.
You're defined by your actions, Donnie. That's pretty much the only thing that makes you an anarchist.
So I'm just saying that the anarchists really need to reach out.
Do you want to be ruled, Donnie? Hold on, we'll do an anarchist test. Do you wish to be ruled in any way, Donnie?
What?
Do you wish to be ruled in any way, Donnie?
Of course not.
Answer the question.
Okay, you're an anarchist. Ba-boom. That's it.
All right. My point is the anarchists aren't reaching out in a meaningful way. Granted, they're somewhat noisy enough, but if they're ineffective, it's a kind of a waste of everybody's time, and it's somewhat counterproductive. Because
well, I don't know. When you say the anarchist, that's very subjective. There's a lot of people under the umbrella.
Were you the same one? You the same one that admitted there was an echo chamber 15 minutes ago? Okay, well then there's
there are
anarchists,
echo
Dave.
chambers.
That's right, and one of them is called the anarchist echo chamber, Dave. And sometimes in there it gets a little cold, and my point is that if we don't bring the warmth back to it, it's not going to help much. We don't have to change the message. We don't have to go on Gary Johnson.
We definitely need to. When I say we, I mean me. I'm definitely have been working on my emotional response to people that I see have not been working or don't mentally break down things in logical ways.
And I'm not going to succumb to the language bitches, and I'm going to say we, the anarchists, need to have a better message, because it's not coming across as well as it can. It needs to be a little more Tom Woods and a little less Christopher Cantwell. And that's assuming Cantwell isn't a fucking status now, but never mind that. All I'm saying is, the Liberty shot isn't really going to work. So both barrels, just save them.
Well, that's why I've always adopted
as a whole, as a group.
I've adopted this agnostic attack from all angles approach. I think that's the best way to go about it. Pick something you're passionate with, interject that with anarchy, and spread it. That's that simple. If it's trolling people online, do it with anarchy. If it's helping old ladies across the street, help it with anarchy.
And my point is that trolling is the wrong methodology to get it across. That's
just your what we call subjective opinion there, Donnie.
Okay, well, quit shitting on the floor, Dave. Quit shitting on the floor.
I'm not quite the shitter.
There's different approaches to different groups of people, and it really depends on who you're talking to and who you're trying to tell your message to. And like we've been talking about, people that respond to emotional appeals, you're not going to get to them with logic. The same people that, and conversely, the people that you can appeal to their logic. If you make an emotional argument to them, they're going to dismiss it because it doesn't hold any water for them. So really, it just comes down to you have to understand your audience. You have to understand your audience. Yep. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And exactly. But my point specifically is that our group tends to be the very logical, the very cold side. Tends to be. I know it's not all of them, and I know some of us came the hard way. You have to understand that I want to use Lloyd as an example. Lloyd was a full-blown communist, lefty-feely guy, but he has done such a massive amount of work in his life to bring the logic into it. Yeah. He is a pinnacle of perseverance. I feel like I cheated, okay? I turned off all my sense data, and I crammed logic for 30 years.
Yeah, that's all I've been doing my whole life.
So everything that Lloyd was working his whole fucking life to do, I get an epiphany like 5 years ago. Hey, this shit's broken. Maybe I should look into it. And suddenly here I am, a tenth of the books that Lloyd has read later. And here I am having a conversation, just batting it back around to the point where even Jeremy's like, Jesus, I can't keep up with you guys. And I feel like I cheated. I mean, it's wrong. But now I'm starting to do the sense data thing. And I got there's a whole new universe of sense data that I just don't understand.
It takes you a minute to be able to rhetoricize any kind of knowledge, and then be able to put emotion behind it is another step in that knowledge of being able to transfer that knowledge to other people. So I'm glad you're adding to your arsenal, Donnie. I'm glad that these things are happening. That you're all
blame the THC.
Blame the THC.
Blame the THC.
Good.
It's magic. Well, that shit is magic. I mean, my monkey is still tuned up from 20. I've been out for 18 months, but I was in for 19 years, and I can tell you my monkey is still in a little bit of rough shape. But I am aware of the situation, so that's like the first step in really getting a hold of it, and it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie.
You can see a hurt snake, but just remember it will still bite you. That's my thing there.
Yep. And honestly, I'm writing stuff down just to get a feel for what I'm trying to say, but I definitely have some stuff for the logical thinkers, because we definitely club people over the head far too often in ways that we don't notice until you notice, and then you feel shitty about it.
Some people do, and I got a lot of friends out there. I really don't kick over their soapbox and tell them that I think they're doing things wrong, and I'm not saying that that's what you're doing either. I think I wanted to early on. I wanted to be like, hey, look, I think you're doing this wrong, but I let everybody try to do their things. Like, I've messaged a few people, and I've been like, hey, man, I think you should change this about your message, and you will have no contradictions. Right now, I'm scratching my head. And, they've changed their message, or they've argued with me, and then they've lost. And that has to happen with people that once they get in that logical state of thinking, because anarchy, true understanding of anarchy, true understanding of non-aggression and consent and all of this tends to make you start thinking of at least human actions more logically and less emotionally. And I know we're trying to wrap up here, so I'm gonna give Andrei a few minutes to talk. Then Donnie, you go ahead and say something. We'll wrap it up.
Well, I just wanted to go back to what we were talking about with trying to reach people at their level. I know we've kind of pretty much beat that horse to death, but it's like we've said multiple times. We tend to think of things logically, which you pretty much, once you understand praxeology and human action and you understand how all of that works, you almost don't have a choice but to look at it logically, because that's the best method of understanding it.
It allows you to make the best economical decisions. That's why we tend to think more logically.
But not all the decisions you make are economical.
No, they're not.
Well,
I mean, sometimes you go blow $100 on alcohol when you shouldn't, because you're going to go piss it all out.
But what I was going to roll back around to is, when it really comes down to it, when you understand, human action and the importance of the individual, and I wrote a piece about this, about how our understanding of things and our logic really informs the most, I don't want to say the most universal form of love, but really and truly it's the universal feeling that we all should be treated exactly the way that we want ourselves to be treated, and we feel that every individual is or should have that same opportunity. And that is a massive boon to us, to spreading the message to people that relate to it on an emotional level, is getting people to understand that it's not so much the logic, it's the understanding that we as individuals should treat other individuals the same way that we expect to be treated.
You nailed it.
It's the golden rule, and everybody seems to, I forget it.
Have you ever heard of the silver rule?
And they become adults, but no, I haven't.
Well, the silver rule, the golden rule is do unto others as they do unto you, or whatever. Well, the golden,
as you would have done unto you.
Yeah, as you would have done unto you. The silver rule is do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. So that's the anarchist.
I like that.
The silver rule is the anarchist rule. So a lot of people don't know that. I can't remember where I heard that, but it
negative obligations. I like that.
It makes the most sense. Donnie?
Yeah. Honestly, we've kind of beat most of it to death. I would just, like you said, when you said about the golden rule and the silver rule, I would caution, don't treat everybody like you treat yourself, because you might be a little harder than your neighbor, and you might be a masochist. Well, you know what? I'm not a masochist, but I have lived a very hard life that I didn't fully understand until now. It's pretty hard on the monkey, and some people's monkey can't handle it. They really can't handle me, so I can't do unto others as I would do unto me all the time. I have to do unto others as they would have done unto themselves. So you just got to keep an eye out for that, because I'll tell you, I thought some days I was radiating joy and I was giving everybody sunburn.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of know yourself. If you don't know where you end and where somebody else begins,
the Jolly Green Giant can be really happy, but he can still be jumping around, knocking houses down and shitting everywhere,
breaking stuff. Exactly.
Yeah. I get you there. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming in and filling in for Jeremy. He wanted to take a little time off to hang out with his girls and stuff, and take a little break for a week or two.
I'm glad to hear that.
So that's, I guess, it for all of us here today or tonight or whenever you're listening to this, you listener, thank you so much for listening to the Seeds of Liberty. Check us out on patreon.com/Seeds of Liberty. I know I don't put much activity on there, but that's essentially a way to help fund us and get us more bandwidth on Libsynth and all of our other stuff to so more people can hear more shows. We're trying to start a network here. So all I'm asking for is $1 a month. If like 100 or 200 people are doing that, we can really, really get way more shows on here. So check us out, theseedsliberty.com, patreon.com/seedsliberty. And also remember that we are covered by the BIPCOT license. That means that anyone can use this except for governments and the agents thereof. Thank you.
Or you'll be slut-shamed.
Yeah, you'll be slut-shamed.
Horribly.
Thank you so much for listening, guys, and have a great day. Peace.
Peace.